News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Denise Pellegrini.
There's a Mexican naval vessel, 277 people on board. Primary is 3 critical, 17 serious.
That's the emergency channel courtesy of Broadcastify as a Mexican Navy sailing ship on a global goodwill tour struck the Brooklyn Bridge in New York last night, snapping 3 masts, killing 2 crew members, and leaving some sailors dangling in the air waiting for help. NYPD Chief Wilson Arambolas.
The pilot, the captain that was maneuvering the ship, lost, power of the ship, and the current mechanical function caused the ship to go right into the pillar of the bridge.
NYPD Chief Wilson Arambolas. Well over a dozen others were injured. The bridge was spared major damage. The ship could be seen traveling swiftly in reverse toward the bridge near the Brooklyn side of the East River before it struck the bridge. The FBI is calling yesterday's massive explosion near Palm Springs Fertility Clinic an intentional act of terrorism. Police say 1 person was killed, 5 others injured. Officials say the suspect died in the attack and posted rambling online writings before an explosion. Police do say that the attacker apparently also attempted to record video or stream the attack. Israeli strikes across the Gaza Strip have killed over 100 people overnight and into today. That is according to hospitals and medics in the battered enclave. In Rome, Pope Leo XIV's first public mass.
Esprimo in particolare la mia gratitudine alle delegazioni ufficiali di numerosi paesi.
History's first American pope during today's installation in Rome, vowing to work for unity so the Catholic Church becomes a sign of peace in the world. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky met at the Vatican during those proceedings, smiling and shaking hands during the enthronement of the Pope. That's after a previous clash between Vance, Zelensky, and President Trump at the White House in February. President Trump, meantime, saying on Truth Social he plans to have phone conversations with Russian President Vladimir Putin and also with Zelensky about the war in Ukraine tomorrow. Russia overnight launched one of the most intensive drone attacks on Ukraine since the beginning of the full-scale invasion in 2022. Day 3 of the New Jersey transit strike. The union and agency officials scheduled to meet today alongside the National Mediation Board. Unscheduled talks yesterday called constructive, but New Jersey Transit President Chris Caluri also says union demands would bankrupt the agency.
No point in making a deal with this union, which will lead to the bankruptcy of the agency, if not the state.
New Jersey Transit President Chris Caluri. Mark Wallace, national president of the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen, says union members sympathize with scrambling commuters, but
our members on New Jersey Transit make $10 less an hour than comparable railroads on Long Island Railroad and Amtrak in the region. And so what they've been seeking for the last 6 years is just parity with the locomotive engineers that they go to work beside of every day.
Wallace is also president of Teamsters Rail Conference. Negotiations continue this weekend after, in a highly unusual move, the House Budget Committee this past week rejected President Trump's tax and spending bill 21-16. 4 Republican reps joining Democrats to vote against it. The committee is planning to meet again late tonight. House leaders trying to broker a compromise between moderates and ultra-conservatives. Investors are also keeping a close eye on the U.S. credit market after Moody's ratings lowered its U.S. credit score to AA1 from AAA and cited concerns about ballooning debt and deficits. And it said would damage U.S. standing as a global capital destination and increase borrowing costs. But Joe Lavorgna, SMBC Nikko Securities chief U.S. economist and former chief economist for the National Economic Council under President Trump's first administration, among those not too happy with Moody's decision, implying the decision is way too pessimistic.
When you assume that an expiring of a tax package that's been in place for 7.5 years is somehow going to add to the deficit, that just doesn't make – that's fundamentally wrong in my opinion. It's just very poor forecasting. So you have a big problem with what Moody's did.
And Lavorgna there on the Bloomberg Balance of Power podcast. The White House, meantime, calls the Moody's downgrade a political decision. Steve Chung, spokesperson for President Trump, singles out Mark Zandi, economist for Moody's Analytics, in a post on X, accusing him of being a longtime critic of the administration's policies. Higher close for U.S. stocks Friday. Investors this coming week looking ahead to economic data and a whole slew of consumer-related earnings reports. Consumer sentiment fell to the second lowest level on record last week, according to the University of Michigan. Joanne Su, Director of Surveys at the University of Michigan.
We've been seeing a rising share of consumers spontaneously mentioning tariffs. A few months ago, it was really a fairly small number of people, and now it's almost 3/4. It's cutting across partisan lines. It's really on everyone's minds.
And Sue there on the Bloomberg Intelligence podcast. And Canada's finance minister says 70% of the country's counter tariffs on U.S. goods implemented in March are still in place. The tariffs were imposed in response to U.S. tariffs on Canadian and Mexican products. The finance minister's statement disputes a report from Oxford Economics suggesting Canada had paused the majority of its retaliatory tariffs. And that's news when you want it. With Bloomberg News Now, I'm Denise Pellegrini, and this is Bloomberg.